Welcome to the Spinfoil Theory Podcast. Each week we sit down and discuss our favorite lore topics from within the Destiny universe. Specifically, we intend to take a close look at a specific question that has been nagging us and potentially the Destiny community as a whole. To fulfill that, our discussions tend to assume that you already have some background in the Destiny lore. Despite that, our goal is to be as lighthearted and welcoming to everyone as possible. With that out of the way, let's dive into this week's topic.
And that'll be our banter.
Banter?
Did you know that we could banter about whatever we want?
Well, golly!
Golly here there, Bagels. What if I told you the Cabal had their own form of sarsaparilla?
What?
Just what if I told you that?
I mean, I believe you. It seems like a reasonable thing for a civilization to invent.
I mean, they did really enjoy Mars. I feel like no one ever talks about this, but Mars was probably a sarsaparilla farm. Like, maybe not exclusively. I'm not an asshole. Obviously, they did other stuff. But I know when the first cowboy from the Southwest who landed on there looked at those dusty fields, was like, sarsaparilla. Yeah. Which, for those of you who don't know about sarsaparilla, it's kind of like cream soda. It's pretty good.
Yes, yes it is.
It's a soda drink from the cowboy days. Yeah. Yeah, and you learned something today that you had no intent on ever learning, probably.
Or ever.
Welcome to the Spinfoil Theory Podcast. My name is Taylor-B, and this here's the Bagels.
Well, howdy.
How do you do the Bagels? Welcome. This one's a fun one. I've been having an interesting week. I'm just Kari and our friend Stephanie who came in time to help. They're very handy. I'm not a very handy gentleman. I'm mechanically inclined. I can do other stuff, but like, hey Taylor-B, let's like go set some baseboards and do plaster. Like, no, please. I have no problem in that too. Like, I'm happy to have these handy women in my life. But yeah, Kari and her friend Stephanie have been like kicking ass over at the house this week. I helped out a little bit, just a little bit. I held up a thing while other things got screwed in.
Mm-hmm.
Not gonna lie, I used my arm length to the group advantage.
You too can be useful in assisting.
I mean, I'm gonna try my best. I make my best. But yeah, so that's it's been a wild week. Definitely feeling good. Happy to do this recording. This week's topic is a little fun. It's what if Caiatl used Ghaul and allowed for his coup, the midnight coup. We'll have a snappier title that you read before you ever listen to this.
That's the gist of it.
Yeah. I'm saying words that I'm sure you agree with. But yeah, that's the thing, and the crux of this actually goes back to D1 or the beginning of D2, sort of like end of D1 transition. In the Cabal booklet that came with the game. Now, Bagels, did you get the collector's ed?
I did not actually. I found a PDF of it online, which somebody handily uploaded like 2 weeks ago, and it's very high quality. I saved the link for it because it's fantastic. Okay,
I see you, Bagels, with your recent boons.
Yeah, I enjoyed greatly people doing things like this, and
I don't have any problem with it when it's like limited run stuff, especially stuff that has to do with like lore. I don't think, like, especially a company like Bungie, I don't think they're like out to like, oh no, that's our private lore, only lore for money.
Right? No, I don't. They clearly don't have an issue with it, especially in the context of like the Shadowkeep and Beyond Light releases, because everybody was sharing that information everywhere.
Dude, like I'm still kicking myself I didn't get a Cade's journal. I didn't buy it that time. I've bought it every time since then, and I tell you what, nothing has been as cool in my opinion. I really enjoyed the moon stuff too, the moon observatory stuff from the D2.
Oh sure.
Release.
Sure.
Or actually the dark. That's the dark, or not the dark below, the Shadowkeep release.
Yeah, no, I understand the K9 stuff.
And the Cabal booklet was really fun. I'm not gonna lie, but that's what brought this up again, because I hadn't really thought about Caiatl since I first read this, and wondered why she wasn't somebody we murdered in the game, or at least saw get murdered by someone else.
Right.
And so here's the thing, Caiatl. If you read the thing, I tell you what, if you're listening to this, listen to the end of the episode. I did a very comical version with my own personal flavor of Calus voice. It's Calus pre-taken by the darkness, so take it for what it's worth.
He was a lot skinnier back then.
No, I'm saying it's like when Anakin becomes Darth Vader, he suddenly, gets that James Earl Jones in his bones. Yeah. This was the pre-Calus they don't like to tell you about. It's why everyone rebelled against him. It's way too dandy. But I'll sync that at the end, because Bagels was kind enough to let me read that shit out, and then once I realized he got quiet, I just kept reading. And here we are. I'll tack that on to the end, though. That'll be like a special treat if you listen to the end of the episode. But in the entry about his daughter, he notes that the person who actually influenced her was not the consul or Ghaul himself. It was actually Amun-Arath, the primus of all legions. Now, Amun-Arath is someone who sort of ended up being appointed by Calus as the head of the legions, like the head primus, after he dissolved the Praetoriate. And so it's kind of like, if you look at the ancient Rome model, and I know this existed, especially in this year, I know this existed in ancient Persia as well to some extent. Like, this wasn't linked directly to Rome, but I know it's Western civilization, that's all you ever hear about. But as someone who studied Farsi, Persian Empire, it's fucking tits. It's pretty great. If you ever go check it out in history class too. It's not what it's not what the what was it, the 100? What was that movie?
Oh, the 300?
The 300, yeah. It's not what that story would have you believe.
I took that as a factual history lesson personally, so I reject all assertions you're currently making.
I'm gonna say those ancient Greeks were probably that fit and naked. I'm just gonna say that. I'm just gonna put that out there. I bet those boys were as fit as they were, because why wouldn't you be? Why wouldn't you be? Why wouldn't you be? But anyway, odd turn people were here for, but didn't know they were at the start of this recording. But anyhow, she's the one that Ghaul appoints as the head of all armies, and she's what kind of allows for the consul to be Ghaul's mentor and kind of succeed through Ghaul. In terms of that, she's what influenced directly Caiatl. And so when Calus goes to his throne to sound the alarm, that there's a coup happening, she actually crushes it in her hands and is just like, nah, bitch.
Side note, it is noted that's a bone.
Yeah, sorry.
Of curiosity, I'm wondering if that's not an Ankara bone. Just kind of a side Spinfoil there. Not
for him to make an emergency wish on.
Exactly. Obviously, nothing we can really confirm there. There's not a whole lot to go off of, but just kind of a curious thought, because there's not a whole lot of references to bones that that you think, that's not a significant reference right there.
Well, do you even need the? Well, so here's something I want to reference. Do you even really need the bone?
If you're Calus in that scenario?
No. I mean, all right.
Oh, to make the wish?
For an Ahamkara to influence you. Because, like, one thing I feel like we never really cleaned up in the last wish is what did we do with her bones?
We started making armor out of them again. No, I don't know.
Dude, right? So Taken didn't stop her. We know death won't stop them either. So what did we do with Riven's bones?
Seemingly, we just kind of left them there for now. But it's a fair question to ask.
But so Riven dies though in the Dreaming City, not in the Taken realm.
Correct.
So that's where the bones is. Bones
correct.
I don't speak English.
You are correct. Yes, the bones would be in the Dreaming City, and presumably with free access for all of the.
Oh, I think that's when Petra comes back into the picture. She's got new bone armor for everybody. Guys, I know I said it had to die, but now that it's dead, let's weaponize it.
That is the most powerful double-edged sword that I can imagine.
Yeah, but you're talking about the lady that can twirl the double-edged blade in her palm like it's nothing. Just saying. Watch out for that. Scribe! Add some facsimile of that random, like, fart of thoughts to the list, please.
Oh my god.
But anyhow, back to text. So it's that Caiatl facilitates through her confidant, Umunarath, and both of them for Dominus Ghaul or for Ghaul to rise to the power of Dominus and sort of seize de facto. It reminds me of sort of a shogun to emperor relationship. If you're familiar with sort of like the Japanese shogunate there, Begs?
A little bit. I have to admit, I'm not quite as familiar with that.
All right, to oversimplify, guys, please don't yell at me for being like Taylor-B. That's not exactly right. I want to admit this right, but to oversimplify, it's a military de facto lead through the different little they're not fiefdoms, but like same idea. The different little like clans and territories or families and like territories and like that type of thing.
Sure.
Little like fiefdoms like throughout Japan, like they basically all have military tithes that lead to the shogunate, to the shogun at the head of the shogunate, who's basically like at that point like his only tithe is directly to the emperor. But it's like it's a pyramid scheme that leads to one dude with one dude above him, so it's really the one dude who's in power. If that makes sense, because everyone's directly under him.
Yeah,
and
makes sense.
The emperor becomes like a little bit of like a figurehead at that point. Even though they have like there's still like there's still a lot that goes into that, but like still, yeah. For all intents and purposes, it's like a weird situation. It reminds me of that because that type of situation, because like Dominus Ghaul is during the time of the Red War, at least, like he's de facto in charge of the entire Cabal military. Like they're all the Red Legion at that point because the Red Legion took over everything. So in that structure, you had now Umunarath, who was in charge of the defenses of the Cabal territory. And she began spearheading this defense against hive war moons that were creeping into their system, right? And you had Caiatl, who obviously like stayed behind to rule as Empress, the Princess Imperial at that point. And this is before Tor Bottle falls, which we learn in this season. And so what kind of brought this up is we first started talking about this, admittedly, Bagels, we first started talking about this before the this season began, but I'm kind of glad we waited.
Yeah, there's been a lot of new information that's relevant to the subject that's been released. Absolutely.
Yeah. that's kind of where we are. Where we're at, like as the pure basis of this argument is that just like step one, step two, Caiatl was loyal to Umunarath, who did not go with Ghaul and decided to stay behind and defend the Cabal Empire against this incursion of Hive Warmoons. I can only assume that's Xivu Arath.
That would be my assumption as well.
Because that's how she sends her message. It's with a Warmoon.
Right.
She doesn't send you like a hello, like an Evite.
We've never really established that Savathun's associated with Warmoons either. It's always been Xivu Arath sending Warmoons. So it makes
and Crota.
Correct.
He liked to ride the Warmoons.
Sure.
Back in the day, you've heard my hypothesis about Luna.
Correct. Yeah, we very lengthy discussion about that.
Yeah, well, we've had a couple, right? It's still, you know what I love about it? At the end of the day, it's still not totally unreasonable.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, like people be like, "No, that's wrong." It was like, okay, but you can't really say why. Anyhow. So that's where this idea starts. To carry it forward, a lot of her language, Caiatl's, in coming in this has one to do with retaking Torbottle. It has two to do with sort of like reconsolidation. A lot of what you do, at least in the weapons that I've encountered so far that are seasonal, a lot of what you read so far is about her kind of taking the Empire a little back to its roots. The dish that she serves, which is really hilarious if you read the class item, at least on Hunters.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the same for everyone, but if you read the class item, it's a recipe from Rahul as best he can translate it.
Right.
For what seems to be like a it almost seems like a jambalaya, but with like space ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
There's a thing that becomes a cube of black that you let ferment on your windowsill for like a couple days. You should really read it. I'm gonna butcher it, but this is like a lower class kind of like street food, like comfort food kind of thing. Yep. And she's doing that to, as Rahul surmises, to get away from decadence. So she's trying to reconsolidate this empire.
She's trying to like strike the middle ground between what her father's like decadence was, but still maintain her father's connection to the people.
Oh yeah, him freeing everyone was a big fucking deal.
Exactly. But she still has to kind of cater to the military class a little bit, is kind of the feeling that you get. So she kind of is trying to strike the middle ground between those three aspects of like Cabal life that have been kind of torn apart, especially since Torbottle has fallen.
And the future of the game. I think it's going to be one of those funneling things that help either unite or further divide us till we're ultimately united again.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. I'm just going to leave that in for flavor. Anyway, the crux of the theory, getting back to brass tacks, thank you for joining us on this ride of tangents, but the crux of the theory, getting back to brass tacks, is really that Caiatl being loyal to Amunarath, who seems to have been slain at this point, based on what we do know. Torbottle fails. Amunarath was the person spearheading the defense against what eventually consumed Torbottle, the Hive invasion. And so, like, even without reading ahead, we can kind of surmise it at this point, was ultimately what I was trying to get at just now. So, with that in mind, I feel like the argument that Caiatl kind of used Ghaul wasn't so much that she orchestrated the coup and like use Ghaul to facilitate it. It's that she was loyal to Amun-Arath, and Amun-Arath chose to let Ghaul like chase his fucking dream of trying to tame the Traveler, because she recognized the small men, which is one of my favorite new things from this season that were called. I really hope that becomes a title, Smallman. Like,
what were that? Small.
It's in one of the weapons. I think it's in one of the heavies. I think it's either the rocket launcher that you can get from the challenge this week, or you can also get the linear fusion rifle. It's one of those two, I think.
Okay.
For some reason, the sniper has no lore.
It'll be added later. I bet.
The bow.
They tend to add stuff in later as well. We've seen multiple recent seasons.
I just think maybe.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
You get that. You get that reply. But anyway, it's in one of those. They refer to us as Smallman. Like one word. Well, he's trying to go fight the Smallman. Well, I hear the strength of the Smallman is in their light. like that. It's pretty great. But it's that basically Ghaul overthrowing things to take the Red Legion and a good portion of the army to assault the Traveler was a means to an end of actually what Amun-Arath had wanted the whole time, which was to recognize outward threats.
Indeed.
Her whole problem with Calus was his complacency through peace, and growing, fat from strength.
Yeah, and in fact, if you'll enjoy my side tirade now.
ooh, okay. I'm getting my popcorn. I'm gonna shut the fuck up. Take me on a ride, bitch.
So,
sorry, Bagels. No.
Kind of build on Taylor's thought process here. Basically, from what we know, even as far back as the D2 Collector's Book, we see the reference of the outside threat referenced in the Umun card there. So we know that the Cabal were at least existentially threatened by something at that point in time, and we learn later on in the Season of Opulence that the Hive were apparently a prescient threat to the Cabal at that time. And so what makes sense to me is that the Cabal, like the military leadership that had been essentially shunted by Calus taking over the leadership of the Empire, they sought a means to exterminate this threat and didn't think that Calus was taking it seriously. So in order to facilitate their what they see necessary to be in action, they facilitated the coup on Calus in order to basically take over military action on the Hive at that point. Now, this is just a theory of mine. It's something that I've been formulating over the past few days. When Taylor kind of brought the Caiatl theory up, it's been growing on me since that time. Basically, to the extent where I think pretty highly of it, especially because we have kind of a timeline that we can imagine now, stretching back to D1, where we know that the Cabal crash-landed a ship into the Dreadnought, and eventually were studying it, and their means to either capture the Traveler or at least contain the light from the Traveler within. And so we had a mission towards the end of the Taken King cycle where the Cabal sent out a signal. At that point, we didn't know to where, but most likely that signal ended up in the hands of the Cabal, specifically under Ghaul. And that is what Ghaul used to learn of how to create his cage that would eventually capture the Traveler. And so, basically, we can establish a rough timeline off of that. We can look to the D1 to D2 cycle as approximately 7 years at this point. And so, just in that time frame, the existential threat of the hive must have been growing at that point. And I would argue that it must have been growing over a significant period of time. And the Cabal military presence probably sought... We're getting more and more desperate and looking for alternative means that they would have otherwise not pursued. And so Ghaul leaving the system at that point probably would have been a desperate means to attempt to gain strength via what he saw essentially as it's a little bit strange to put it into Ghaul's perspective and call the Traveler a god in his view, but he seems to act in a way of reverence towards it, especially with some of the later revelations. How he kind of looks to it and asks for it to look upon him. That sort of phrasing, basically, it seems to be a form of reverence. But regardless, he gains access to the Traveler's light, and the Traveler smacks him down, obviously. So to kind of put this into context with Caiatl, basically we've got once Ghaul goes off chasing his dreams of going after the Traveler, it leaves Caiatl basically in defense of Torobatl with the moon, as Taylor pointed out so deftly. And so at that point, their defense must have failed at some point, and more than likely, the loss of the legions that invaded the Sol system probably catalyzed that, I would guess. So I don't know if Caiatl would have willingly wished them to fail, more or less, but certainly she recognizes the folly later on, and we see that in the Heir Apparent card, where she basically says that Calus was weak. And then so too was Ghaul, destroyed by his weakness. His fixation on the machine god was stupid. It embarrasses her to think of him. So, at least in retrospect, she recognizes how Ghaul's fixation was eventually what led him to his destruction. And so, it's kind of a curious turn now that we've got all this put together to see how Caiatl enters our system and basically how she seemingly would want to put together a legion of the remaining Cabal forces in our system in order to unite and try and crush the Hive so that they could presumably try and take back their home system. But yeah, to put it into context of this theory, because I know that kind of goes way off base a little bit.
I love it. You continue with your rambling self. Do it.
It just to me, I think it's more of a yes and to steal Taylor's term that he likes to use. I feel like Caiatl during the coup saw the threat that the Hive were, and she probably would have been more than willing to assist the would-be couers. Is that a word? Couers?
I mean, it is, but I don't think it works in this context. not to be a stickler there, but
those who would take part in the coup.
Yeah, those conspirators. There you go.
Conspirators. That's correct. Correct word. The conspirators of the coup. They would. I think she saw the wisdom of their plan because she saw that the threat that the Hive were presenting, and she saw that Calus was probably not taking enough of a heavy-handed approach in their defeat. He sought to fatten up his people, as she saw it, to basically earn their allegiance via riches and art and such such displays that she kind of frowned on. Instead, she was a disciple of Umun, one that wanted to, one that thought military conquest was the way of the Cabal. And so the coup was a means to an end to both prevent the Cabal from falling to the Hive and to basically restore her people to what she's probably saw as a vision of what the Cabal are.
So I kind of want to challenge that.
Okay.
I actually read this a little differently. I took what Amunarath's interpretation of what the Cabal were as a little more future war culty.
Okay.
Because I think in this case, her thoughts are about the Hive and the Vex and like external threats.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even about like conquest. It's about like, like, hey, like our empire survives through war, and this is where the war is. So it's like the future war cult isn't saying that it has an enemy. It's like saying, no, war is gonna come, and you can either meet it or you can get conquered, or you can be defeated by it.
That's a fair point. I don't know that I necessarily 100% agree with it, but
in the case of Amunarath,
sure. And I can't say that I've studied extensensively Moon.
She only has a couple entries that we really have available, like 100%. You know what I mean? Kind of like,
exactly.
Like per our thing earlier. We will revisit this before the end of the season, like just so you know, guys. But based on what we think is like full and fair knowledge right now,
mm-hmm.
We don't know 100% what happened, though we can surmise. But like based on what we can read in game, including the first entry that you can get with that. Well, it's all the different things. Like you see what how Caiatl tries to act. Like she sits down with remnants of the Red Legion who like can't fight anymore, and she like tells them stories about like kind of like a weak soldier who was a hero in their own right for leaving a mark against the creature that Acarius would eventually defeat.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, you made it bleed, though. You made it know it was possible. And that's in a way, she's actually honoring what Ghaul did. But like, I think this is all like politically said. I think this is all like, no, you're here to get all your remnants back because, as noted through her interactions with the spider, she has a vast resource of people who've been in this system and who've adapted from the old and traditional Cabal ways to survive.
Mm-hmm.
To tap if she can just call them back to the Empire. So she's pleading. She's a lot savvier, I think, than even her dad, or at least equally so. Because I mean, her dad's pretty friggin' savvy. Her dad, like a lot of people like to compare him to Roman emperors. I kind of think he's like very Napoleon-esque. It's like personality plus tactics.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. He was even put into exile.
I mean, not to be so on the nose about it, but like that's who it really reminds me of. I feel like he's gonna come out of hiding each time, and like more and more people are just gonna flock to him out of habit.
So we've had first exile. What about second exile?
I don't think they know about second exile. but that's where I'm kind of coming from here. Amunarath was for looking to this defense. And just going back to what you were getting back and back to what you were saying, like the whole thing just relies on Caiatl being swayed by that and never really being swayed by what. Because if you think about it, the coup, because even by Calus's own note in that same booklet that I was referencing earlier, it's Amunarath who influences the consul and his heir apparent, who ended up being Dominus Ghaul.
Mm-hmm.
So Amunarath is the real, like, I don't know if it's the real power, but it's the real orchestrator. It's the real conductor of what happened. Like, she was the person in control, and now you have the person who's really her heir apparent showing up. So, like that's what I mean. I mean, if you want to say Taylor-B, this is bullshit because Amunarath was the one using Ghaul, like, okay. But at that point, you kind of have to say Caiatl's part in the coup was also using him because she was working with and for Amun.
Sure. I think that's a pretty fair point. And I had, like I said, I hadn't really considered perspective quite as much in this matter. It's especially since her lore is pretty short and sweet. But no, that makes sense to me. Certainly, the existential threat would be a very very important consideration for her at that time, more than likely.
Yeah, I mean, and it. That's what I really like about the character is I mean, especially for our purposes here, right? There's a lot left for you to piece together because she's mentioned in the edges a lot, almost like Praedyth for the longest time. She's mentioned in the edges of other people's entries. Amunarath influenced this person. This person, through like Amunarath's treachery, was able to do this. My daughter, like blah, Amunarath, like blah blah blah. It's not quite like Savathun-esque. No, because she like no one's giving her credit for anything, right? No one's whispering her name. She's actually operating from the shadows. You might say she's a more effective Savathun.
Just kind of like Varys, kind of just working in the background, pulling some strings a little bit.
Suddenly drinking all the ether. Letting the prison out and just walking away. Like,
oh, not Varys. Sorry, Varys the spider from Game of Thrones.
Oh, or like the actual or like the spider from Destiny.
Yeah, a little bit too.
Okay. So you know what the funniest thing is? I am super willing to now. So Empress Caiatl refers to the fallen, the spider, as insects.
Mm-hmm.
I am here saying this now, clear and wide. They're space ants. Space ants, and that's why, or maybe perhaps termites because they're so pale. but hear me out. That's why he chooses the name the spider, because they probably eat those motherfuckers.
Sure.
It's probably like a nice local facsimile of something that would be their predator, their natural predator, back where they come from. Because as we know from House of Wolves, the Fallen take a very American approach to language. They just adopt whatever the best local facsimile is that they're looking for the word in translation. So it's not that they were the House of Wolves, it's that they were the house of whatever the best translation wolves is for whatever they were. Yep. Don't forget that. That was one of my favorite like explanations for that. But did they have wolves? Like, no, but like that's the closest thing that you have, and they're just going with that.
Facsimile of it.
Yeah, like who cares? Like, we'll just adopt the best thing, or maybe it's like a reverse American adoption of language. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, English as a grander thing tends to do this thing where if we don't have a word for something, but another language that we encounter does, we'll just take that language's word. American English does this to like the nth level, even compared to our mother country and version. We do it like hyper crazy all the time. It's one of our things that we're really into. No, we don't need to be original. We just want to like, oh yeah, that's pretty sweet. Yeah, no, your word's great.
Let me just appropriate that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if it's maybe like an integration.
I agree.
Yeah, but I really kind of dig that approach because it's like, no, your word, you have a word. Why do I need to come up? No, your word's fine.
Let me just tweak it a little bit so it makes sense in our language.
Sometimes we definitely do that, and people, I've been teased for that before for doing the American version of something. I was like, okay, but do you call it Bruxelles? Like, no, you call it Brussels like everyone else. Shut the fuck up. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Someone's gonna write me in like, that's not even the right pronunciation, Taylor-B. Like, okay, I'm sorry. You've got me. It's hyperbole. But yeah, moving on. Yeah, so this one leaves open a lot of questions. One thing I'm worried about is as we learn more about Amunerath's designs were and how Torbottle failed, there could be a large chance that what Caiatl's doing is based on disillusionment.
Disillusionment with her father in particular?
With Amunerath, her mentor.
Okay.
Well,
can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, all right, because we don't have the full picture of how Amunerath how her ultimate plan turned out, because we know her plan was to take on the threat and make that war. One thing I meant to mention earlier, aside from getting turned into all the little tangents that I love to do, was how to mention that one of the things that we can learn from, I think it's another one of the weapons. I think it's the submachine gun. Sure. Of the seasonal weapons. If you read in, there's this whole scene about basically a Cabal and his daughter. There's an artifact that brought their house to prominence on Torbottle, and if they link with a scion, they can kind of like go back to sort of like the memories of the object kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like a flash memory, just inherent to the object.
Yeah. When they come out of it, like in that scene, they're looking at it for the last time, and then the father destroys it, because there's no going back to Torbottle. There's only going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is someone who wasn't part of the Red Legion. It's not like some random legionary. It's someone who's coming in with Caiatl.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes me wonder if that's like a house mantra, or if that's like a greater mantra, which to me sounds like disillusionment. Or maybe like a revisioning of what they have to do to sort of uphold what Amunerath was going for. Like saying that like all of this is logistics to what we really are, which is war. To what life really is for them.
I guess I took that more so in the frame that the father is trying to teach the daughter that there's no turning back. Like our home is gone. Our only hope forward is to go forward and find a new place, likely via war.
Right.
So I guess in that context, I guess it does kind of leave your point, but sure.
Well, the juxtaposition here is that what Amunerath was doing was welcoming war. In this case, they're seeking it. They're having to take new land. They're having to find their new home and conquer it.
Sure. Instead of fleeing somewhere peaceful, they're actively seeking out a conflict. Well, yeah. Seemingly actively seeking out a conflict, yeah.
Well, it seems like based on the language, too, they're doing it specifically here in the Sol system.
Mm-hmm.
The solar system.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's where I am. That's where I am there with misgivings about the theory. Little seeds like that make it seem like maybe there is a bit of a paradigm shift.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah.
I think that's justified. It's certainly entirely possible that that Caiatl was. There's enough seeds going back to like Caiatl's early days. I think we've got the storyteller card basically gives a little bit of a background story about how Caiatl dreamed of being a warrior, and so it could paint her into the picture that she surely the warrior princess type of thing. No Xena references necessary there, but she
can there be?
No.
I'm asking for a friend.
No.
All right, it was really for me. What about now?
Regardless, it just kind of paints her to be like, even as a kid, she dreamed of being a soldier. Less so. It was in that point in time. It wasn't even that Umun was in the picture. Now, we don't have this full lore book unlocked yet, so I hesitate to use it too much. But it does point to your hesitation there, Taylor, that certainly Caiatl could have been just a strict warmonger type. And she could have fallen in legion with similar-minded folks. And it couldn't have been, it might not have been about basically finding a way to defend themselves. Is more so just about war. War is ongoing forever, sort of thing.
Well, it's not about, again, like, it's a future war cult thing. Like, the future war cult is not, like, seeking out war.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're just ready for it. And so it's about, like, an ever-readiness, or, like, maybe, like, when your, like, air quotes world, proverbial world, has, like, multiple things that compete, it's just, like, effective nature. Like, you're going to compete over resources.
Mm-hmm.
As long as there's continued growth. So, like, that's sort of what I'm going for more with that. Like, I didn't really take her thing as, like, very imperial, Amunarath. Because what does she do with it when she has? She goes to defend territory. She doesn't go with the conquering team.
Sure. I think that's fair. I just wanted to point out a potential flaw in the theory. More so.
I guess to, like, add to that, shifting to Caiatl. Caiatl no longer has a home to defend.
Correct.
And so now it's kind of like, okay, I've got the weight of our Imperial fleet, like, what's left of it, you know, like, aside. And it's just a different stance entirely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm not going to argue with that. I yeah, just pointing out different things. So. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, for me, I'm really here for the idea. I can't wait to learn more about what happened to, like, Amunarath, but, like, sort of kind of like, you know, now pointing the finger at Amunarath as being the real orchestrator of the coup. Her presumably being dead, or, like, maybe something weird happened to her. Maybe she, like, drank the darkness better. Would you agree with her drinking the darkness better?
Sure, why not?
I'm just saying, like, you seem to perk up as soon as I said darkness butter, and you were like, "Oh, I saw your vocals like spike for a second." So let's make sure we got your reactions out there. I would totally be here for that. Like, she's just this, like, walking, like, evil thing now. Like, nah, man, I ate the ice Kool-Aid. It was nice and cool. Blue raspberry. Like, yeah, like that came out. But yeah, I really dig this theory. It makes Ghaul. You know how ultimately at the end of the Red War campaign you feel like Ghaul was a lot smaller than he felt coming in?
Mm-hmm.
I think this sort of adds to that he was never really that big. He just kind of, like, sucker punched us real good.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the impression you should walk away.
And I think the sort of background and, you know, with wider eyes looking at that booklet again, I think you kind of realize that he was never really the one in control.
Yeah, he was always he was ambitious, but he never was, like, essentially he is a mastermind at times, but usually he wasn't the mastermind behind the major plays. But
anyhow. Ghaul always seemed, like, jealous of one thing or another. And he was always chasing what he didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, the Cabal Empire was never going to be good enough, even though he was de facto in charge of it. He fights his way to the top of that. He's like, well, this sucks. What? They have some paracausal being helping them? Why not me? Motherfucker! And he, like, comes after that. He just finally, like, he's like the dog who finally bites the truck. He just doesn't know what to do once he finally gets it.
More so the truck just explodes in his face and
I mean, that's kind of what happened. That's kind of what would happen to the dog if it ever actually caught the truck.
That's fair. Well, I don't know that the truck would necessarily explode, but sure, it would
Dog
probably...
might. Not that would be a tragedy. Don't get it twisted, everyone. All dogs are good boys. Even the ones that are actually good girls.
No, I'm thinking similarly. There's some good credence to this theory, particularly in the concept that Caiatl, following Umun, would certainly have been subject to her will to at least an extent, presumably, and so Umun wanting to overthrow Calus, it certainly makes sense that if Umun saw the existential threat on the horizon, Caiatl probably would have used the coup to overthrow Calus as a means to hopefully prevent that from happening. The existential threat being the hive. So yeah, no, I think there's some good learnings here from that, basically.
All right, well, I'm glad you got them learnings on.
For lack of a better word there.
Bagels. All right, you want to try the new so do you want to try the new scale?
The new scale?
From,
give it a shot.
From Vizzini to Kevin Garnett. Vizzini, for those of you who don't know, being inconceivable, to Kevin Garnett, where anything is possible. We've invented this new scale to confuse you since we never really had a scale before, and we just think this is funny. So bear with us. If you'd like to write in your own version of the scale, or like another member that could be in the middle of it, please reach out to spinfoiltheory@gmail.com or add us on Twitter @spinfoiltheory. Bagels, are you adding us right now? You can just say it on the show. I can hear you.
I may or may not be.
I'm just saying, like, you don't have to. You could just say it. You're a host. You don't have to. You don't have to hide your ideas from me. Okay. How would you score it, kind sir?
Put me on the spot, man.
That's how I get you.
It's true. I am willing to give it a solid 29 magic bullets. Yeah, that's completely possible that, sorry, I'm gonna use the Seinfeld reference instead. The spit is clearly traveling between multiple projectiles here.
The second spitter.
Yeah.
Second spitter. I was really hoping that the magic bullet the magic bullets version boiled down to, I'm not sure how they got there, but like, he's dead. Rip JFK.
But yes, there were clearly multiple spitters in this scenario, and I'm gonna run with that.
Clearly multiple spitters. Okay. I'm going to give it 1986 Kevin Garnett's.
Ooh. You're pretty confident there.
Yeah. Well, anything is possible. But
no. No, I'm joking. Don't come after me, Kevin Garnett.
I mean, Kevin Garnett, go and dunk on the bagels. He lives in the state of Iowa, which has at least 7 people in it. So I know your search is going to be, Scandinavian crime drama wide, but I'm sure you can narrow it down. I think I can tell you which street he lives on. I don't think they have that many.
You would have a pretty good chance.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'll just throw a dart at a picture of Iowa. Whichever street is nearest, I'll have to get out the tape measure.
The only question would be whether or not you get all aspects of the street name correct, because there are multiple aspects to it.
Oh, you thought this was simple? No. Anyway, all right. I give it 1982 Kevin Garnett's. I say that because I think it's very plausible. I think it is likely to be revealed. I have not read ahead of what's available right now. Like, even if I don't, I try to save it for when I have it myself, because that really like allows me to like keep playing the game for a lot of the lore bits that are out there. It's a nice like little like carrot on a stick I've sort of saved for myself rather than reading ahead. Not like nothing against anyone who like has to consume it by reading it, or like can't wait. Like, I'm not mad at you guys either. That's just sort of like how I kind of like keep myself entertained.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So like for purposes of the show though, if it's out there, I will read it. So like based on what I've seen like so far of like what's available like as of this week, I just I feel like that's the direction it's going in. It's not that Caiatl was necessarily like the mastermind that used Ghaul and the console, but I really think she's the inheritor of that person's like kind of ideals. For sure, like definitely like the apprentice, like the next step in the equation, like the Plato to your Socrates.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going. That's like the next step in that progression of thought. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm staying on that one. That's why I give it 1982, because also, I think Blade Runner came out in 82. It's a pretty sweet year. I don't actually know. Did Blade Runner come out in 82?
Wasn't it just like the 25th or 30th anniversary?
It was 82. Boom.
Okay, fair enough.
Boom. Yeah, pretty sweet year. All right. Anyway, I was not allowed, but assumed Blade Runner was happening, so it had its good parts. But so yeah. That's what I got. Begs, any way that you can imagine to turn it up to 11, what would you need?
Not a whole lot. Most of the material is there to kind of lead us in the direction that Caiatl probably did see an opportunity to, if not extend her well to at least make sure the Cabal were surviving. For the foreseeable future, that seems to be her main goal. She seems to be a lady of the people, so to speak. We see that in the recipe bit on the Prefectus cloak. So I think most of the information is there. She certainly would have sought any means necessary in order to ensure the survival of her people, and using Ghaul and using the console to do that. Sure, that makes sense to me. So I really don't need a whole lot to fill in the gap. Basically, if Bungie wants to confirm it and say, hey, you know what? Caiatl, she basically wanted to use Ghaul to take down her father and make sure the longevity of the Cabal legions were ensured. So yeah, there's not a lot left to kind of fill in the blanks, in my opinion.
I kind of agree with that, but I really want to stress, like, take it a step like stupider. And I want to make it to where my opinion is really going to be conformed by the fact of whether or not she gives like a James Bond villain-esque monologue about everything she did before we murder her. She has to be murdered. Even Calus doesn't care.
I'll note that I'm not 100% convinced to that at this point. It's a little early, but I've got a few inklings that she might not be in our system to murder us, she might be in our system to still form a pact. She might not have been lying about that aspect of it, but it's a little early to tell on that.
I think she just wants to use us to try and retake their home, which would be cool. First time leaving the system, retaking the Cabal homeworld.
That would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool.
That would make for some pretty sweet action, actually.
I would be here for it, but at the same time, I also think it'd be funny if we just like shot her and be like, no, dumbass, just kind of like scoot away. Not that I think that's what the Guardian would do necessarily. Don't hate on me, everyone. But I just think that would be funny. Like narratively, if I saw that acted out, it'd be like Lance Reddick's awesome recording of the fan meme.
That is one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
No, Mr. Reddick, if for some God blessed reason you're ever listening to this show, oh my God, you nailed it. Like, not just in your acting of the character Zavala, but in his delivery of that sassafras line.
Mm-hmm.
One fucking Guardian. Like, holy shit. Sent chills down my spine to my funny bone. And I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. So yeah, that's what I would want to turn it up to 11. I just wanted to like have us with a laser about to laser us in half. Just like going off about her master plan and about how we could have stopped it if we weren't about to die. But really what she told us is how we could stop it and we weren't about to die the whole time. Because I assume we have some kind of like, paracausal space laser watch that she wasn't aware of.
Deflect the laser back at her. Oh no!
With a coin that we had in our pocket.
I
couldn't have pure copper. No. Oh, that wouldn't work anymore. They're only copper plated. They're nickel now. Pennies.
Yeah.
For anyone who didn't get our Simpsons reference.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's all I got. Yeah, but brother, you got any shout outs, sir?
Just honestly, my shout out is to everybody just hanging in there from the cold. Holy shit, is it cold outside right now? I want it to end. Please be warm again. Sincerely, the Bagels.
I back that up. One I actually meant to do a little sooner. Sort of like a, I don't know, like a spiritual shout out to the people of Myanmar. As someone who was in a capital city with a failed coup recently, heart's going out to you, man. With the coup and military rule that you guys are dealing with right now. I know this isn't a super political show, but like, that's, that's hitting me a little extra special this year. So, yeah, that's fucking scary. I hope everyone stays safe.
Absolutely.
And I am in awe of all the protests and things that are going on. Like that shot of the police crossing the barrier to protect the protesters from the water cannon. It's fucking amazing. Like, it's fucking amazing. So, yeah, big shout out to you guys.
I can't argue with that at all.
Keep staying safe. Well, I hope not. That's not very Midwestern nice. Argue with that.
No.
Uber. No, I know what you meant. Okay, but with that, everyone, please stay safe. We're still going. We're about to. What is it? In a couple weeks, we'll reach like a year of at least in the U.S. like full on lockdown, full on quarantine in many places. So yeah, it's been a crazy ride.
Yeah, it's been one of those adventures that you want to get off. I want to get off Mr. Bones' wild ride. Basically, is what it amounts to.
Yeah, Mr. Toad, this was not the picnic adventure you had led me to believe we were going on.
No.
I don't care. No, I don't care how sassy your pantaloons are. I missed that. They replaced it with, I think, the Harry Potter exhibit or something. But you can find, I think, the statue from Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. I think it's behind the Tower of Terror. It's in, like, the graveyard back there. You can see the statue in Disney World.
Okay.
I think that's right. I don't know. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride was one of my favorite ones when I was a kid because you actually got to kind of drive the car on the track. That was a cool one. But yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. La la la. All right. Thanks everyone. Stay safe out there. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
That's the end of this week's topic, but be sure to check out our past and future episodes on Spotify, iTunes, and Podbean. If you have any questions about this week's topic, want to discuss Destiny lore with us, or if you just feel like reaching out to us, you can find us on Twitter at Spinfoil Theory, or you can email us via spinfoiltheory@gmail.com. Thanks for listening!
The Lore Network.
Caiatl, the Princess Imperial.
Yeah, I read through that the other day.
Beloved, what have you done? This is how I imagine Calus talks. I only wanted an heir who would love what I love, sweet air and song and the grand work of architects. Feasts and ecstasies, worlds of delight, are these things not best? Was I an attentive child? No, I was not. But the more I tried to show you what I love, the more you turned away. First, those games of war and conquest that you played with Umul. Then pressure armor you took to wearing at home, as if the place were an alien world and the rebels toxic. I was so happy when you became a star pilot. I thought you'd see our great cabal in all its glory and variety and understand the joy of peace. But when you returned to Torobato, you would hie away with Umun whispering about threats that gathered at our frontier. I could have stopped the coup. You alone knew of my special arrangement. But when I raced to my throne to give the signal, you were there. You sat on my throne, the signal in your fist. And when I reached out to beg, you crushed the bone in your gauntlet. Father, you said, I will not be weak. You mistook my joy for weakness. You understood nothing of who I am. So my dear is dying. Only in flight is she ever happy. Only when she's happy can she be reached. I could never reach her. Perhaps you will. So, thank you for entertaining that.
That was your whole preparation for this episode, right?
That's all I have to talk about. That's my whole argument.
You just spent the whole time just preparing your voice, and that's it.
Begs, when you got something that's bulletproof, that's all you need.